So hi everyone, we are here for another episode of Spiritual Superpowers. And for today's episode, we have with us Tina, and she's going to talk about the Akashic Records. So welcome, Tina.
Thank you. Thank you both for having me.
Thank you for being here. Tina, why don't we start by telling the audience a little bit about yourself?
Okay. I'm Tina Hinsberger, and I am Moonstone medium. I do a number of things. So I am a Reiki master and a medical Reiki master. I also am a medium, so I do mediumship readings. I do psychic tarot readings, and I also do Akashic record readings.
Oh, wonderful. I'm very excited to learn more about Akashic Records today. Can you maybe explain what Akashic Records are?
Probably the easiest way to explain it is if you think about the Akashic Records as being a great big filing cabinet that is kept by the lords of the Akashic Records, and it's ever expanding. So you really will only just be able to tap into very little bits of the Akashic Records, and really what gets released to you through the Akashic Records are just what you need to know at that moment of time, right? So the Akashic Records, by accessing the Akashic Records, you can really shine a light on what's happening in your life. So if there's a particular problem, you're really kind of looking for some answers from the universe as to what's happening, whether there's a specific situation in mind, whether you're just wondering, well, why am I headed down this path, or what is happening right now, and I just need more understanding about that. So one of the ways that you can do that is by accessing your Akashic Records, or having somebody else access your Akashic Records with permission in order to try to shine that light, make some sense out of what's happening in that moment.
Okay, so when you say in that moment, you mean in like the present time for that person?
Right, correct, okay. Yes. And because the Akashic Records also, they contain not only information about your current life, what's happening now, but it also contains information about all of your past lives, all of your lives between lives, so it's a history of you at the soul level, right? So it's not just a history of who you are in this lifetime. So sometimes as well, information may come through from one of your past lives or lives between lives that might help to understand better what's going on in this current life for you.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. Now, what drew you to learn to do Akashic Records, or how did you get into your now career as a medium and a therapist and a psychic?
Okay, so, well, with Akashic Records specifically, I had read a book years ago, and I was already really interested in a lot of different avenues. So along my journey, I was doing Reiki, I was taking mediumship classes and intuitive classes, and really developing those areas. And in the midst of doing that, I had read this book by Linda Howe on reading your Akashic Records, and I was really drawn to her specifically. She had been reading Akashic Records for more than 20 years, way before anybody even knew what Akashic Records were, and I knew I wanted at some point to take a course from her specifically. And then it's really interesting, but my mediumship mentor also, while I was still sitting in mediumship circles with her, actually did take a course with her. So that was even more validation for me that that's where I wanted to be for that. So just want to fast forward a little bit to really the end of 2019. So at the end of 2019, I was really feeling that I needed to really bump myself up spiritually. I felt as though 2020 was going to be an incredibly transformational year. Did not predict this. Just so you know. I did that. This was not on my radar. However, I felt it was a transformational year, not just for me, but for many others as well. And I felt like there was going to be a huge spiritual awakening in 2020. And then March happened.
Borders closed.
And the pandemic happened and everything just shut right down. Like many people, I was really sitting for a few weeks trying to make sense out of what was going on and, feeling like I'm swirling energies from everybody around me. It probably took a few weeks, but maybe about 3 to 4 weeks later, I suddenly realized this is why I was so motivated and felt like I was being pushed to really bump up my vibrational energy and to make sure that I was able to be of service to others. That's where that revelation happened.
Because they need it, is that right?
Because people were going to need it. We were all going to need that from each other, right? So the more of us who were able to vibrationally be able to be higher and be of service for others, that we needed sort of almost like an army of people, really being able to be of service to everybody.
Now that we are a little bit more used to the new norm, I think a lot of people might be wondering, looking outside of why is this happening? And this way we can supply some information for them about what techniques or tools might benefit them or what they might feel resonating with them at this time. And Akashic Records, especially with this moment in time and what's going on, I'm sure it would bring a lot of answers to a lot of people.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well,
so let's get to it.
How does it work? What do you...
Okay, so typically with Akashic Record reading, so what I will do is I always start with pathway prayer in order to access somebody's Akashic records. I always ask for permission first and then use that pathway prayer. So some of that prayer I read out loud, some of it I read silently. One of the pieces that I read silently is your full legal name that you would use. So that would be one of the pieces that I would be reading silently in order to really resonate and be able to read your records. So the way I typically will provide an Akashic record reading is if a lot of times people will come to me with some specific issue, some specific thing that they want some advice on, that they're really struggling with, whether it's interactions with somebody else or whether it's something within themselves. And so I generally will open up the records and then we start with a bit of a conversation. So just a conversation in terms of really understanding what is the situation at hand, what is it that you're wanting to learn about, what are you wanting to gather. And then I consult with masters, teachers, and loved ones. And of course I close the records at the end, because you don't want to walk around with your records wide open.
Everyone to see.
What they're sharing with me currently is that with respect to the spiritual superpower stuff that you're doing, I'm picking up that it's going to be expanding. So it feels like the way the information is being presented to me is almost like it's this ball that's vibrating that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So you don't want to sever ties with the corporate piece because there will be those opportunities. And again, this is when I was talking about the 2020 in terms of being a spiritual awakening for people, that's happening there as well. It's happening in the corporate world in terms of you being able to share some of your knowledge and some of your wisdom about your superpowers and the superpowers of others, like the information that you've been gathering, you'll be able to share with them in some way. So there are going to be those linkages.
And actually that's interesting because Dawn, we kind of talked about that, didn't we? Bringing our spiritual superpowers into corporate settings. I'm wondering if that would be, how that would be received, but...
Yeah, let me see what else they can tell me about that. I'm getting that there's one or two people that you'll be connecting with. So there's a couple of specific people who will be open and be able to kind of be that bridge between you and the corporate world in order to get you in and bring you in. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Well, that's great. And, it's interesting because I wouldn't have thought too much about that corporate piece and how to, bring this world into that world, which I think has huge potential.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. But it's just still, you just have a little bit of work to do in terms of the foundational piece.
Excellent.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was excellent, Tina. Thank you so much.
Let me now close your record.
Oh, of course.
So that,
yes. We can't forget that.
So we will do that piece right now.
Hello, we just finished a great interview with Tina, the Moonstone medium. She did an Akashic Records reading on Karen, and it was so much fun because I've had a reading, and I believe you have too.
Yeah.
But I really didn't understand why I had a reading or how it works. And so she really, I loved how she explained everything. And now I definitely can see that to get those kind of answers or validation, Akashic Records is a perfect way to do that.
Yeah, I think, compared to the other reading I had, there was more direction in this reading, which is really what I was looking for. Maybe the last time, if I recall, I didn't ask questions, or I didn't think about questions to ask, whereas this time, I did.
Yeah.
So I think that's important.
Okay.
Going into a reading, knowing what you want to ask.
Right, and having, that intention set. Yeah, no, she did such a great job, and it makes me very curious about Akashic Records. It makes me want to have a reading with her as well. And so I guess we'll find out more about what she had, the information that she gave you. We'll be able to know more as the next year, the 3 main questions that you had as the results unfold. We'll be able to see how that goes. All right, well, thanks again for tuning in, and remember, thumbs up or subscribe.